All right, welcome into Bout Wow. It's getting real out at Cowboys Camp in Oxnard, California, where we will be next week. The crowds are thick on the first weekend in Oxnard, California. Look at the lineup of cars. And Cowboys veterans and rookies making statements on the field. Matter of fact, we just saw a play that might end up on every highlight reel for a while. Today wasn't just another practice. It was a showcase. Who did it best? And yes, one rookie and one lucky tiny fan just flat out stole the show. Take it away, Jimmy.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys? Yeah!
All right, welcome in. I'm Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fan, 2 to 7 every weekday on your home of the Cowboys. And joining me, as always, is the former all-academic lineman from Kentucky, New Bear Lesniewski. Buddy, how the heck are you?
I mean, we're not just kissing babies, we're stealing babies. Let's go.
Yes, that is right. Kaiir Elam, by the way, in that clip, doing it the best. How Bout Wow, brought to you by Bet Online. Referral link is in the description. Up to $250 in bonus bets this NFL season waiting for you if you sign up through How Bout Wow. Injury updates are coming, brought to you by Elements Massage in Frisco. All righty, New Bear, you ready to help me out with something?
Let's do it.
Okay, I have 3 plays. I want you to help me decide which was the best play of training camp here on the Saturday session. By the way, what is your favorite play of Oxnard so far? Feel free to maybe put a link in the description down below, or I'm sorry, the comments down below, and we'll all take a look at it and talk about it. But here we go. Here's the first one, touchdown from Brevin Spann-Ford from Joe Milton.
Oh, there he is.
Here, let me turn the volume down so we can talk better. But, I mean, one of the big questions for Brevin Spann-Ford last year was guys not catching the ball good enough to get him on the field, take advantage of his size and his strength in the blocking game on the ground. But, man, he has been turning heads the first week in Oxnard, California. That's the best catch he's made so far. I mean, that's going to get the trust of the quarterbacks.
Well, especially because, like you said, the size, right? And when there's some dudes, you just look at them and you go, man, if the light ever goes on, and he's not a wow guy in terms of the 40 or the split or even like some of the jumping stuff. But when you're 6'7", you don't have to jump that much, right? I mean, to be able to trust a guy at that size that you can just put it on him when it matters, when it counts, and there's bodies all around him, and he's going to come down, like that's exciting.
So play number 1 is exciting. Brevin Spann-Ford. Scooney, by the way, we got stuff on him later on. The third-year tight end from Michigan, second rounder of the 2023 draft. He's in this thing as well. So the tight end room is looking good. Play 2 candidate, the rookie Jaden Blue. He's known for toting the rock, but he's also known for catching it. I did not know he had it like this, though, New Bear. Let's do this. One-hander from the rookie. Falling backwards, falling down, secures the catch. Jaden Blue, play number 2 here as we determine play of the day. I mean, that's wide receiver skill right there that you're getting from the running back position, an absolute cheat code in today's game.
Look, man, he had 5 for 59 and 2. The Ohio State Buckeyes scored 2 touchdowns in their semifinal loss. He had them both. Or sorry, what is wrong with me? The Texas Longhorns scored 2 touchdowns in their semifinal loss against Ohio State, and he had them both. And that's the thing that's so special about this kid and why I was so high, why we got into the whole offensive rookie of the year conversation is like maybe he doesn't end up even with 100 rushes on the year. What if he catches 100 balls?
If he catches 100 balls, the season's going to be incredible.
I mean, 100 targets, though, which is crazy. Alvin Kamara and other running backs like him with this similar skill set, maybe they don't tote the rock because they have another big guy like they're hoping on Javonte Williams to be. But there's a world that we live in where he ends up with 100 targets, 80 catches, and you're running that rail and all kinds of things can happen.
Third candidate for a play of the day in Oxnard, California. You saw a piece of this in the opening clip. Here's the whole deal. Kaiir Elam, he had a ton of PBUs and OTAs and minicamp. He has multiple picks this week, including this one on the 4th day of Cowboys training camp practice. I thought maybe he's going to do a Lambeau leap in here, but he takes young Cowboys fan and hoists him up. I mean, that is just the stuff that NFL social media is made of right there. You can imagine memories for life for that kid and his dad, man. Such a cool event. And I was always checking, being a dad of little ones myself, if he was going to be crying when he ultimately got down to the ground, but the little champ was taking it well.
My favorite thing about this one and why this one probably – are we voting now, or are we going to talk about it and then vote?
So I have lots more plays, but I think these are the three best.
This is the one that the Cowboys need. So, like, Jaden Blue.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to give you another angle on it.
Do it. Play it.
Yeah, there it is. I'm going to turn the audio off because I don't think they can hear us, but there's the angle with the fan. Pretty cool.
If Jaden Blue blows up, I mean, that's icing on the cake. I mean, really, it's cherry on top. And, you know, CD and GP are going to get the bulk. And I'm throwing out numbers just because I like to play absolute best case, right? But he's literally an exclamation point, meaning Jaden Blue. And then, you know, as you go back through the tight end room, and as excited as we are to talk about and forecast what 12 and 13 personnel might look like for this team, particularly dictating personnel in the run game, if you can have field stretching unexpectedly from guys that, you know, you're not counting on like you are with CD and GP. But this is the one they need. If Kaiir Elam can finally live up to the pedigree, then not only does it, I mean, it's not that it doesn't matter. I mean, Diggs is Diggs. And if he's good, he's one of the best. But if Kaiir Elam is right and he can finally live up to that pedigree, he can buy everyone time.
He has good ball skills, and his stats in Buffalo don't suggest that. But they do suggest he is a very physical tackler in the run game. If he can give you average cover and then, you know, break out the ball skills that we're seeing, maybe it's just the difference in how the Cowboys, who are so turnover hungry, are going to coach him. It is hard to imagine, though, a guy that went from being the picked on corner in Buffalo, the reason for losing games, regular season and postseason, so frustrated. That's why they let the former first round pick go. But sometimes that's what a young player needs to dig deeper and realize his potential when the pain of getting cut really digs deep.
I mean, you can talk about his counting stats and even go back to Florida. A lot of the stuff with him was the measurables and the Deion Sanders effect, right? Where you're not getting necessarily some of those balls, so you're not going to have an opportunity to pick a ton of them off. But this is a guy, for all his warts and all his wants, he did grab, he picked Mahomes off, and he's made picks in playoff games multiple times. And you can talk about injuries and everything that happened in Buffalo with their defense being what kept them from ultimately having a ring finally with the reigning MVP and Josh Allen. But I mean, this is a guy, for all his warts and all his wants, he has made plays against some of the biggest names.
He absolutely has. Let me see if I can get this next play up. I'm gonna vote for the Jaden Blue play, you know, just because of how incredible it is for a running back, you know, to make a one-handed grab, go to the ground with it. He had some other really nice plays throughout the day, but if I had to pick one of those, I think I would say Jaden Blue was the most impressive, followed by the Brevin Span Ford catch in traffic in the end zone, and then Kaiir Elam. Would he have gotten maybe a little PI there?
Yeah, a little holding. Well, and I'm just going through the machinations of forecasting this into how it plays out over the course of the season. I mean, last night we went through the cornerback room and we talked about, you know, a guy who's basically a 28-year-old rookie that no one's ever heard of, right? With Kamon Hall is your starting nickel. So if you start deconstructing this team from a team first, okay, fine. You want to judge it on just like the coolest play or the best. I mean, if you're making one-hand catches in traffic, it's tough to beat that, no matter how tall you are or how fast you are when you're talking about the tight end room or the running back room. I just want to focus and reroute everything at every opportunity that we get in what the team needs. And if Blue, let's think about this for a second. Let's just say that Elam can't play at all, and this defense is injured and incomplete. Then if Blue is doing that week in and week out, now we're talking about it doesn't matter because the defense gets one pick, one fumble recovery. They get a couple of 3-and-outs. Dak's throwing up 35 a game, and we're just running people out.
That's right. I cannot wait. Let's bring back the 30 burgers up next here on How About Wow. Okay, I have other good plays, and buddy, we might have a one-tech run-stuffing defensive tackle in the making out of UCLA. We go to Patrick Walker, voice of the star. That's Patrick with no C, DallasCowboys.com. I'm going to read you the text first, then I'm going to show you the play. Jay Toya has been eating up double teams most of the time, and the one time they didn't double him, he bull rushed his way into Milton's personal space. And here's the play out in Oxnard at 2025 Dallas Cowboys training camp. Okay, not a bad surge up the middle. Obviously, you're not getting him for his pass rush, but I think this is our best chance right now of having a big guy in the middle that's difficult to contain. New Bear.
Look, 6'2", 340. I don't even care what he runs. If 6'2", 340 gives you anything other than taking a chess piece off the table for the other team, that's a win. If he's just literally putting the hand in the dirt and dictating the fact that we're going to take a guard and a center out so that Kenneth Murray can play downhill or Sanborn can play downhill, and all these pass rushers are just one-on-one, let's go.
Let's go. Okay, speaking of let's go.
How about them Cowboys?
How about a Jaden Blue run? Okay. I think he's got the most juice on the inside. And it's
not a thinking thought, maybe thing. He absolutely is the guy they want to rise.
Okay. So, look at the shoulder shimmy right here. As he's getting into that second level in the linebackers, that's what I saw in college. It's just like he has the ability to keep his eyes on you, read you, and try to shake you. And while he's pulling his jukes, he's looking for any body language or lean to go the other way. And sometimes it makes him absolutely be able to ghost the dude and he's gone. But a lot of times it allows him to just get to the outside and then burst forward for another 2 to 3 yards to finish the run, as coaches like to say.
What's fun about this is the forecast, if I'm going to do that at all, and think about, okay, so we get into, week 1, it's 3rd and 17. There's a penalty or there's a fumble and you fall on it and you're behind the sticks and you're just like, all right, we're going to punt, we're going to reset and drive 2. This is the kind of guy with the shimmy shake, like you're talking about, and the shoulder fakes, that if he puts one foot in the ground and makes one dude miss, all of a sudden we're watching that James Conner, Clayton Adams film all over again, and he's picking up a first down on a 3rd and punt. Like, let's take that as the build off of this, where he's one of those guys who's got such special talent that he can take things that are basically just throwaway plays and turn them into game-changing ones.
Yeah, and when they do give him, speaking of Arizona, the yards before contact, like I think yards before contact for the defense is a double-edged sword, because not only did you not get to that guy before he was 4 to 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage so often in Arizona, but now he's at full speed. And it's just totally different when you're trying to get up to speed and put a move on a guy compared to when you were already there. It becomes almost impossible to stop him for a loss, and it becomes about a 50-50 proposition depending on your tackling skills, whether you get him or not. So I think that one is huge, and to my knowledge, we haven't had him put one on the turf yet in Oxnard.
Well, and if we're going to talk about this being a team and Dak being the way that he's, you're talking about 600 throws, right? Let's just be honest that if Dak plays 17 games, we're talking about him being at the top of the leaderboard. I
sure as hell hope not. Okay,
I'm talking about historically, right? Historically, throw out the early stuff. Since Dak became Dak, and especially as a $60 million man. There was one year, the year that we all go back to when everything Turf Monster got him. He was on pace to throw 800 balls. And not that we want that, but just saying that exists in this world. If you have the ability to just do simple inside draw stuff here, now you can take some of the pressure off of Guyton if he's still struggling, or Steele, right? We saw the rolled ankle. You develop something like that where you're struggling with speed off the edge, whether it's for lack of talent or an injury bugaboo as you skip through 18 weeks. Now, all of a sudden, we're putting the focus back on where we want it to be with Tyler, and BB. And if you're going to get movement in the middle and you're putting Blue on a track where he's squirting through that line with a full head of steam untouched, who wants to tackle him one-on-one?
Yeah, well, nobody, because it's a recipe for looking foolish.
It's a recipe for memes.
It is. It absolutely is. And, I think, when I look back on Dak's career, yes, it was early. Maybe they didn't trust him, but they should have never gotten out of the mode of trying to keep him at 500 attempts in a season. Tony Romo had under 500 in 2014, right? I think it was 29 attempts a game. So, and I think Tony Romo had significantly more passing talent than Dak Prescott, but it's just like, how do you optimize? And I think if you want to get the best out of your quarterback, the fewer attempts he has, the more bigger plays you're setting up for. And I strongly believe that. Okay, speaking of Dak, we got another keeper. How's he moving so far in Oxnard? New Bear, tell me.
Well, him skipping through holes and him finishing plays. Obviously, we're at the part where everyone knows you're not going to hit the guy in the red jersey. But when he's really finishing runs, and also, some of this stuff with the read option is fascinating, right? Because even Lamar Jackson sometimes makes the wrong read. Even Jalen Hurts sometimes makes the wrong read because they just want to be the guy and they know they can beat you around end. The thing about Dak is that all the Cowboys need is when the defense is wrong, when the end crashes, when it's there. If he can take that, then it changes everything, because now you have to respect that, which means you can't crash, because at the very least he's resetting. And when you get first and over again, and now you're in third and medium, third and manageable, and you have to account for that, it just limits what the defense can do in the chess match.
We're going to look at 43, Kamon Hall right here, the leader in the clubhouse to be the Cowboys starting slot corner. And watch how he's looking in, and then he decides, it's play action pass. He's bailing. And in the moment Dak sees the back of his jersey, he goes. And that's all that he has to do. He doesn't have to run fast. He doesn't have to try to break tackles or make anybody miss. Just when Kamon Hall is lined up and there's the fake, it's a pass, I got to turn, boom, there's Dak, right? Let me get that 5 or 6 yards and we'll get down, and then we'll start here on 2nd and 5.
Yeah, I mean, I love to say touchdown, first down, get down, throw it to your grandmother in the stands. But what you're talking about is attacking. What you're talking about is literally playing offense and being on offense, and not it being an offensive thing where if you play man free or cover zero, you're going to get home. If Dak has any juice left in the tank, it completely changes the tempo from how Shoddy calls it and from how they execute it. Because if you go into a week knowing that you've had to spend that whole week going, hey, let's not forget, because they're going to stress that laser pointer, like clip. Like if it's 3rd and 7 and you got a spy, now all of a sudden, even if you're rushing for dropping 7, you're really only dropping 6. You change the math if he can move it all.
And I think he can. I think Dak is moving better. We talked about it quite a bit, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago in that body episode that we did where Dak's just shredded. And, we talked about how lean he was and how strong he was. This is the best I've seen him moving since the compound fracture of his lower leg. This is really good. There's no signs of the hamstring avulsion fracture happening. So, and I think Dak probably has done that as a result of Brian Schottenheimer saying, we need you to keep the defense honest more than you have post-injury.
Well, let's not forget, too, that if this happens on that first drive, if this happens on that first 3rd down, then that impacts the game script for the defense. Everyone focuses on the Waffle House play sheet. The offensive coordinators get but the defensive coordinators have the same damn thing. They have their tendencies. They have their calculators. They got their guys up in the press box watching and seeing how it looks today. And if the first Sunday means that on 3rd and 7, Dak goes and gets you 8, it literally changes the other 58 minutes of the game.
All righty, up next here on Bout Wow, Dawson and New Bear. If you're still watching, love it if you could like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell button so you never miss when we upload. I think we're going to go live next week in Oxnard, California as well, do some Q&As for you. Jonathan Mingo. Boom. You see that catch? I wonder about Mingo's hands in Carolina. And then last year with the Cowboys, his catch percentage was like 35. I was fully convinced this dude's just a physical run blocking wide receiver, but he's really making me reevaluate that statement with a convincing catch where he's having to go outside of his frame and bring it back in pretty much every day. Contested catches as well, New Bear.
I mean, literally his best year was a flip a coin type of deal. And when you think about that, you go, man, like what are we really? But come on now, we're talking about the Red Rifle. We're talking about Bryce Young. We're talking about, I mean, as much
Red Rifle, Cooper Rush,
as much work as Canales.
Yeah.
Canales did that work in Tampa with like real QB1s, right? Carolina, I mean, Miles Sanders is on this team too. Let's not forget that he wasn't even available. And if the best ability is availability and guys like that aren't even on the field, and then the guys that you draft are running around playing like deer in headlights, and the best option you have is somebody who should be holding a clipboard, how much of that is on the young developing guy? And I don't know. Mingo's one of those dudes where the traits are always going to give him a shot. And the traits are always going to mean you're going to look at this dude and be like, there's got to be something we can do. We were just talking, I mean, the last couple of times, actually, we've talked about him. We said, let's put him in the protein shake line and turn him into a tight end. If he's going to split out wide, and can hold on to the ball, he's going to turn heads. I mean, he's like a baby DK Metcalf out there.
He is, dude. And I thought, well, this is going to be an incredible weapon to have in the run game. But, to what you just said in our previous discussion about Dak keeping it, if you can get a ball out to Jonathan Mingo in the first quarter, and now when he's running in the game, it's not, making them think, oh, this is just a run, it's a pass as well. I think this could be insane. I think he's big enough to get the end. There's all sorts of fun stuff that you can do with Jonathan Mingo, but he has to be at least a respectable option in the pass game, and maybe we're heading in that direction. Speaking of the pass game,
remember, because he's so big, before you jump ahead, like you can bring him in motion, particularly from the short side, and he can block a 9 technique. He can wipe somebody out and be a part of all of the things. All he's got to do is show he can catch it.
Absolutely. All right, up next year, I got this Scooney catch going into year 3, big year 3. He was injured his rookie year. He hasn't been good enough at the point of attack and blocking, and he hasn't been good enough catching the ball to make us convinced that, he's better than Jake Ferguson as tight end number 1, or even better than Brevin Spanford, who's challenging him as an undrafted tight end 2, with just massive size. But Scooney's very strong as well, and here was his fine work at today's Saturday practice at Cowboys training camp. I mean, he's not blowing anybody's doors off with that, but reliability, and Scooney has had some nice catches. I did see Brian Broaddus interacting on Twitter earlier, with somebody who said Scooney's a bust of a pick. It was the worst second-round pick of all time. He said, wish you'd been around here the last 3 days. So today was day 4, more production from Scooney.
Yeah, I mean, the pedigree here is what everyone gets. I just also want to come back to, these guys at 6'5", 250, who run like he did at 4'6", 159 split and have a little bit of bounce. Like there's stuff here with him that you want to just give him every opportunity to prove you right. And Michigan plays football a certain kind of way. And if we're going to talk about, I mean, look at what the Bears did going up and getting Colston Loveland, and they have Cole Kmet. They have a good NFL level tight end. And they said, you know what, that wasn't enough, because this guy's traits show us things that we could do potentially in 12. And maybe they grab another guy, and you're in a situation where you have the ability to play 13 and bang heads. And I think what a guy like Ben Johnson and what he did in Detroit is you take the weapons and then you say, like, what can we add? What can we do with what we have? And then what can we add so that we can dictate to people that, like, you never know how it's coming at you. You never know where it's coming from. I mean, look at all the things they've done. I mean, they've made Jared Goff like the darling of the nation. The entire stadium literally chants Jared Goff. And he was a guy that got run out of LA after a Super Bowl run. Schoonmaker is one of those guys who, as a part of a scheme and as a part of a system, can be a difference maker if Fergie is healthy and stretching the seam, and you have to count for him too.
Yeah, and I'm willing to be patient with him more, because tight ends take a while. And if he arrives in year 3 or year 4 as a guy that's capable of getting you 50, 60 catches, I won't be surprised. Would I bet on it? Probably not. Seems like maybe a 30, 40 catch kind of guy. But I would say as a team, what are we doing? Taking tight ends high. Haven't we seen over the last decade as everybody's chasing who's the next Kelsey, who's the next Gronk? There's more bust tight ends on the first 2 rounds of the draft than just about any other position, probably than quarterback. And maybe even more. It'd be an interesting case study, especially because you have Brevin Spanford and Jake Ferguson, who are day 3 and undrafted guys outplaying him. I just think if there was any mistake, it's an organizational philosophy that, hey, we took Gavin Escobar 10 years ago in the 2nd round. We took Marty B in the 2nd round. Let's do it again here with Schoonmaker. It's not working out. And I think, a thorough investigation would say maybe we need to back off this strategy.
Same time, we're talking about the same school with Mozzie Smith. I think when you put on the tape, one of the things you have to account for is what's going on around this guy, how many playmakers, what the scheme dictating openness or one-on-ones and all the different elements that go into it. And now you're really talking about not just the scouting department, but in totality with Jones fam, falling in love with traits, falling in love with, it's a Michigan man, right? This is a guy who does things the right way, who measures up. When you're 6'5", 250, running 4'6", bouncing 35 inches, it's easy to justify going, this is our guy.
You mentioned about, being one of 11 on the field together and being Michigan guys. I think that because the physicality and coordination was so great in the Harbaugh years, guys were standing out and producing in ways that, probably wasn't a good projection that they would continue to do so. You missed on Taco Charlton. You missed on Mozzie Smith. You missed on Schoonmaker. You have to go back to Jordan Lewis in like the 2012 or 2013 draft to find a Cowboys hit from Michigan. And is that just a horrible coincidence? Or is there something to be learned there? From who was on the field with them? Okay, let's get this for you next on How About Wow. We got a Terrence Steele update. We were tracking this story late in the week as he missed Thursday's practice with an ankle. They sent him for a better scan. We were discussing it. Our injury updates on How About Wow brought to you by Elements Massage in Frisco, the massage spot for total wellness and recovery. 2 locations. And they're a proud partner of How About Wow, next to the Star and next to the soccer stadium. They're Elements Massage in Frisco. But I would say that looks pretty dang good, and I won't be shocked if he's in the padded practice tomorrow there. Terrence Steele dodged a bullet for Cowboys fans. I'd hate to try to do it without him.
4 out of 5. That's where I'm focused. Like if you lock in on those 4 out of 5, room can focus on left tackle and what that battle comes down. Maybe if you can get 4.5 out of 5. Everyone in the NFL, even on Sunday, there's a guard, there's a tackle, there's a center, there's a question everywhere on every team. There's a weak link, and if you're only as strong as the weakest link, then it becomes how do you mask, how do you hide, how do you scheme around that guy? And if Steele's healthy, then we've got a really good chance of assuming 80% success rate on every play up front. And if the only question then is that we have to answer is left tackle, that is, when we were talking about it, all of a sudden now you go from having 4 out of 5 to now both bookends. That's a completely different conversation if you can't block anyone on the edge.
I think with Guyton and his athleticism on run plays, you might get 5 out of 5 quite often. On pass plays, it might drop to 3 out of 5. But Dak Prescott has proven throughout Terrence Steele's career he can see that pressure coming and he can often just step up because Steele does a nice job of keeping the guy wide and then pushing him up the field. And then, Dak's got the path between tackle and guard to escape or step up. And as long as the front is not collapsing, which it did with Tyler Biotish, that's why they let him go to Washington and drafted Cooper Beebe. I'll be confident they'll be good to go. I do have another injury update for you, New Bear. Guess who this is? That'd be Mr. Siobhan Revel. Okay. Now, he's got the shells on. He's got the helmet on. And the update from Nick Harris here, Star Telegram, is the 3rd rounder, the rookie, helmet and cleats on around the corners today, not with the rehab group for the first time. Could be nearing a return from PUP. Would be huge for him to be cleared before the first preseason game on August 9th. That would be a very pleasant surprise. But Brian's been telling me from the training staff, the plan has been to get him eventually to practice in Oxnard. We might be nearing that day real quick.
This is the same kind of conversation that Sam Williams was giving us from his perspective, where he's talking about no soreness, no stiffness, no swelling, and running 22 miles an hour. The film that we saw, and look, you can pull one clip from any, you could make a young man bending over to pluck a blade of grass look like George Burns on The Simpsons if you really find the clip. My only question with this, and what you want to hear from the man is there, and are we rushing this at all? Because I would rather watch Kimon Hall struggle and give this dude every chance to be the top 40 player that Brian Broaddus thinks he is, than have him come back and end up in a situation like we are with Diggs.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. And I would think if the thought might be, hey, if we're 500 halfway through the season, but we're getting Revel and Diggs back healthy, I'll take my chances.
Yeah. I mean, those heading into the bye, I mean, you're talking about 8-2, 7-3, 6-4. At worst, like if you're 5-5, then there's some really, really, really big questions about this team coming out of the bye before they run that gauntlet 12 through 17 with the condensed schedules around the holidays. They have to do everything that they can to put themselves in a position to kind of be ahead of schedule almost. But that cannot mean putting guys, if they're having swelling and stiffness and they're not trusting it. And even if just because you're not swelling and just because you're not stiff, just because you're checking out doesn't mean that your head is in place. If you're mental trust it, then you can't be out there, especially out on an island where, we talk about how, corners more than anyone have to flush plays, right? You're going to get beat. Guys are going to make plays on you. There's very few Revis Island types. But even having said that, if you're giving up those plays because you don't feel like you can plant and go, then you're doing two things. You're setting yourself up to give up 11, 13, 15, 18 because you're playing soft, or you're just burnt toast. And if you're in between, you're wrong, short or long, and guys are just going to take advantage of you. Like, it's the hardest thing to do outside a quarterback if you're good to go. So if he's not right, then you got to sit the young man down for his own benefit.
You're right about that. Okay, up next here on How About Wow, we gave you the top 3 plays of today's 4th Cowboys training camp practice in Oxnard, California. How about I give you the not top play of the day? Have you seen this? What we have here is dad who let his son wear a Jalen Hurts jersey to Cowboys training camp. Pretty good. I don't know what Colts jersey he has on. Is that a Pat McAfee jersey or something? Hell, I do not know. By the way, that is also the bleachers that Newbear and I will be doing shows from all next week in Oxnard, California. There won't be nearly as many people in there because it won't be a weekend practice, just to clarify.
This is such a character building exercise. Like, I want to imagine the conversation that I would have with my son heading to any camp where you're going to, rivalry, enemy territory, and you're going to wear the enemy team. And I mean, look, the Eagles, they booed Santa Claus. They booed Michael Irvin when he broke his damn neck. Like, they deserve everything that they get back in turn. And then you go, but wait, it's a kid. It's like, so what? It's the Eagles.
Yes. I mean, an Eagles fan, by the time he's 3 years old, he's heard 10 times the worst language that he could possibly at a Cowboys training camp facility. I mean, that dad probably has him flipping off the camera when they pan to him in the kiss cam or something. Okay. So that's what happens when a kid wears an Eagles jersey to Cowboys training camp. What happens when Charles Haley is giving all the love to Jerry Jones? The first weekend day of the training camp every year in Oxnard, they do a little presentation for all the fans to make the Oxnard VIPs seem special. They bring them out in the field and everything. And today, Charles Haley was extolling the virtues of Jerry Jones, writes toda, and said he's all about winning. One fan yelled out, "Jerry, sign Micah." Another screamed, "Sell the team." And this just goes back to that juxtaposition. The vibes are insane. The vibes are so good. You got a bunch of young football players acting like they're on church camp, picking up kids and dancing with them. Like, it's Disney Channel good vibes out there right now with the players. But the hate for Jerry Jones is undefeated, and it is still very strong. The only way this team is sold, let me just put it out there to be 100% real, I think you look at Washington, right? If you're a Cowboys fan and you need Jerry Jones to sell this team, or you look at the LA Clippers or the Carolina Panthers with Jerry Richardson, you know the picture that I'm painting. Jerry's just too good at NDAs, though. You know what I'm saying?
So the pivot that I'm going to make off of that would be to reroute and reroute this conversation in Charles Haley, not just being a guy that has more rings than anybody, but a guy who was a fumble away from basically a three-peat in San Francisco. Switch. I just did it again. I mashed up two words. Switches the entire balance of power in the league coming to Dallas, wins 3 and 4, right? So he goes from an almost three-peat to 3 out of 4. And there's just, the ultimate winner and a guy who basically becomes the reason that the 49ers go and get Deion Sanders, and then the reason that Jerry Jones doubles down and brings him to Dallas to finish the job in 95. When you look back at Charles Haley, I think he's one of those guys that kind of gets looked over for when you talk about all-time greats and best of lists. I think he's one of those dudes that should be a lot higher up, and not just because he won the same way that you don't just make Brady the GOAT because he won more than anyone. He affected the entire league with the decisions that he made and the plays that he made.
He gave you some of that incredible pass rush talent, but with tremendous size, and the power that he had, particularly in his lower half, just allowed him to either overwhelm or beat with quickness. Like, he was an absolute cheat code at edge. The thing that I think is most relevant about this, and Charles was up there saying, this is one of the best teams that Jerry Jones has ever made, and y'all should support him, and this, that, and the other thing is the difference between those teams and this team. And somebody put it in the comments of yesterday's chat was, Jerry felt like, I got to go win Super Bowls in order to make this business successful. Now he's figured out, I don't need to win anything to make this successful. And because of that, when they have a need, like one technique defensive tackle, they throw a 7th rounder at it. When they need linebackers, they throw $8 combined million at it, right? When they needed a corner, they went out and got Dion and paid him more than anybody else on the team was making.
Well, more than any quarterback in the league was making. That was like a TJ Watt, Jamar Chase, insert your favorite wide receiver or edge rusher conversation. The Dion move wasn't just at corner; it was league wide.
That's insane. I didn't even know that part about it. But, when those teams needed to plug a gap, they went out and got a future Hall of Famer. And so that's where I would challenge Charles Haley, and hopefully like that, that message will get home. I do think they did a hell of a job with their version of it, is to trade for guys that aren't making market value, right? That's the Cowboys' modern version of plugging holes. So they tried it with Brandon Cooks. They tried it with Stephon Gilmore. Now they're trying it with George Pickens. Like, instead of older guys who are past their prime, can we trade for guys who have not gotten out of their rookie deal yet? Would that be a decent compromise that realistically we could expect the Cowboys to do at some point? They just did one. Why not another one? Bleep them picks, just like Les Snead in LA.
I think one of the things you have to consider, though, is that Jerry winning with Barry Switzer was the end-all, be-all, I'm smarter than all you guys. So that he looks at, if the league is undervaluing defensive tackles, I can go get 2 7s and let them compete to be the one guy. There's all kinds of rhyme and reason in the way they do business. It's just not what we would like to see happen. What I'm hoping on both fronts, meaning where I live and where we're talking about, is that the teams that are right there, that have the opportunity to separate themselves from the middle of the pack to compete with the folks that everyone thinks are the front runners, make more moves over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Because there are, and you and I have done this, and we've talked about doing a whole pod around this, there's 3, 4, 5 guys at every position where, if you look at the top teams and then you look at that next tier and the teams that could sneak up on those teams that everyone just thinks is going to be good to go, you slide in a slot corner, you slide in a running back, and there's enough dudes out there on the street, if you will, that aren't street free agents, that are potentially, Stephon Gilmore is going to be a guy who maybe gets a gold jacket one day. It might take the Veterans Committee, but let's not forget he was a Defensive Player of the Year, and he walks into a room, commands everyone's respect. But before I do that and digress further and go position by position or talk about dudes who could slot in particularly in the slot for the Cowboys. I think the biggest miss on this, when you're talking about position by position, and the reason that Cowboys Nation is still a little bit pissed off at Jones fam, is that they never called Saquon, and they just passed completely, totally, without even thinking about entertaining that he might take less to wear the star, like he took less to wear a damn Raven, Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that was sad. But I'll tell you this about that, New Bear, and the thing that I actually like. While the Cowboys will never rebuild, like, hey, it's time to tear this thing down, last year was their version of that. Like, we know we're not winning. We're not spending any money at free agency. We just had a bad draft class. So while they're still talking and pretending like, oh, yeah, this could be our year, that's the engagement farming. The reason I liked passing on Henry and Saquon is those players would not have done nearly the same as they were able to do for the Ravens and Eagles. The team just wasn't ready. I would be interested to see, you keep Dak healthy last year. You add a Saquon Barkley. Could that be a playoff team? I mean, Saquon made the playoffs, 1 out of his 5 years with the Giants. I don't think the Cowboys were quite that bad, but I think you only spend it running back when that is the final piece of the puzzle.
Right, but we're also talking about perception, and the Deion Sanders signing was a much earlier version. I mean, 20 years, 25 years prior to Dak becoming the $60 million man, and it only cost him 35 over 5, or was it 35 over 7? I mean, I think he got like 13 guaranteed. And the reason that he left San Francisco was that Jerry Rice had a clause in his contract that said Jerry Rice had to be the second highest paid player behind the quarterback. And like, we get into this tit for tat stuff over time and how balances of powers change. I know you're a guy who believes you should only spend on RB1, and I mean like RB1 and the Saquons and the King Henrys of the world if you have everything else in place. The only challenge to that is they just spent 12 draft capital on Booker. They got 3 1s in their starting 5. We still have no idea what this running back room or what this production really looks like. And at the opposite end of that spectrum, if you take a Saquon or a King Henry and you drop them into a line, you could have still added Booker. You could have still done that. You might not have been at 12 because you would have spent 18 weeks dictating terms. And I'm just saying, not only does Dak Prescott, but let's talk about Cooper Rush if he's turning around and handing it to a guy who's running his way to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you never know how things would shift with perception and what that could have looked like. I still think you got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to play pass defense, avoid the chunk plays, and stop the run. And that's what Philadelphia was able to do. And
can we just do humor one thing, right? Last year, we both agree that, and this isn't just last year, this is the last 2 RB1s in Dallas. Like when you go back through Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle and you say, oh, okay, and Zeke obviously getting old, we didn't get these big long runs, right? I mean, you're talking about Dowdle's longest run last year was 27 yards, but his success rate was 54%. Literally happens to be twice as long as his longest run. When you talk about averaging 4.6 without Dak for half the season, and then you add to that the talent, the ability, the have to scheme for levels of greatness that exist with a Saquon or a Derrick Henry. I'm just saying that the narrative doesn't just change because of the name and the dollars associated with it. The game-to-game way that you play and that the teams have to play you changes in turn.
It's exciting for the future. Bodes well for the future. Rico Dowdle had such a high success rate. He just couldn't pop them, to give you that EPA per play. Like while he was top 6 in rush success rate, I guess running play success rate, I think he was bottom 5 or bottom 6 in EPA per rush. The team was for sure. I think the team was second to last in EPA per rush because you never got the biggins. Those biggins change everything.
Yeah, okay. I think when you have success, when you go 1,000 with Pollard, when you go 1,000 with Dowdle, when you go success rate, and now it's not just the counting stats, because in a 17-game season, I mean, 1,000 yards isn't what it used to be, right? At the same time, they can dig down into the data and they can go, oh, well, look at what the sabermetrics say. Let's have the Moneyball conversation. And if we can go 53-6 with Rico Dowdle and then we add Booker and we get Dak for the whole year, it almost doesn't matter who we have in the running back room. Why would we pay those guys when we can spread that money around? Because we got to go pay Micah. And oh, by the way, here comes one Tyler, and here comes Deron Bland. And if Ferguson's right again and he's back into crash test dummy mode, he's going to be a guy that you want to bring back.
And you got Pickens in there as well. It's tough. So I actually don't mind the idea of this year finding out if one of these guys can give you that replacement level production that allows you to save money there. And then if they take a big step this year, then maybe I'd bang a second or third round pick on a star runner out of college. We're in Oxnard this week. Back tomorrow. Padded practice camp coverage for your Cowboys here. And can't wait till you check us out next time. Hit the like button, sub, and the bell button. Till then, how about wow?